Good morning, Hacksters! Welcome to Tuesday. Today we have a very exciting guest on our weekly show, Hackster Café. Be sure to join us every week. But yes, today we're talking to Bjørn Spockeli of Nordic Semiconductor. We're very excited to talk about this behavior project that I've heard so much about, as well as other stuff that's going on at Nordic. Welcome. And could you tell us a little bit about what you do at Nordic as Senior Project Manager in the Applications Department?
Well, first a bit about Nordic. So we are a semiconductor company specializing in ultra low power wireless connectivity solutions. So I think there's a lot of hackers and makers that know our products very well, like the NR24 series. You get like these small modules that you can solder onto a lot of sort of projects and get wireless connectivity, and NR51, 52 series, and even the 53 series. So my department, we're responsible for creating all the development kits and reference designs and prototyping platforms that we sort of send to our customers, or that our customers buy, and use those to create their own products.
So yeah, in this project specifically, there's four different ones, at least four. But we've got the Nordic Thingy 52, 53, the Thingy 91, and the NRF 5340 DK that are all kind of being tied together into a single project, and it kind of helps highlight the strengths and uses of each one of those platforms. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we in this behavior project, we had a bunch of summer students, and their task was to sort of create this smart hive system that monitors the temperature, humidity, air pressure, weight of the beehive, and basically making all that available remotely through a web page. So the sort of only constraints that they had to work with, or had to deal with, was to only use Nordic hardware and software development tools. So here we see a really great figure of how the sort of system is tied together. So inside each of the hives, you have Nordic Thingy 52. So that measures air pressure, temperature, and humidity. And at the bottom of the hive there, you see that black sort of strip there. That's a Bluetooth-enabled scale with a built-in temperature sensor as well. And so that weighs the cube or the hive, and the beekeeper then knows sort of when it's ready for harvest, or if the bees have swarmed. So basically, if they've eloped and set up shop somewhere else. And they also had this bee counter at the entrance of the beehive. Unfortunately, they ran into some sort of environmental issues with the bee counter. It didn't really stand up to the sort of rough weather that we have at our Trondheim office. So and it also ended up using a lot of power. So it wasn't low power enough. So they had to cut that out of the project. But with the scale, you're able to sort of detect if the bees are swarming, and you know that there's sort of activity in the cube or in the hive. So all that information from the hives themselves are sent to these 5340 DKs that sort of aggregate the sensor information, and that's passed on to Thingy 91, and then uploaded to the cloud and made accessible through our REST API.
Yeah, and I watched, there's actually a playlist that you sent me with 4 videos that sort of are really these beautifully produced videos giving an overview of the entire project. And I watched through the first one, and they mentioned that for the infrared counter, which unfortunately couldn't handle the weather, that was working on an Adafruit Itsy Bitsy, is that right? And that has a Nordic chip on it, but it's a piece of hardware that was developed by Adafruit as well. So not only a bunch of different Nordic development kits, but also this piece from Adafruit, which I think is super cool.
Yes.
So there's all these different protocols going on here, like they're communicating with each other, or the Adafruit one was over UART, and then there's a bunch of different wireless things going on. Can you tell us a little bit more about the structure of this project?
Yeah, so for the BLE part, or for all the sort of
Really?
connectivity related to the 5340 DKs, the thingy 52s, and these BLE scales. So that is Bluetooth Low Energy, and the 5340 devices are acting as centrals and sort of aggregating all that sensory information. And then from the 5340 DKs, we use this custom Bluetooth service that we have developed at Nordic. So it's just basically a UART connection over the air. So you're basically just sending bits and bytes, streaming them over over a Bluetooth connection, and then you sort of forward it from the thingy 91 up to the cloud.
Cool.
And on that side, I believe they were using sort of packaging things in a JSON structure, and I'm not quite sure what kind of protocol they were using. It might be sort of CoAP or MQTT for sending that up to the NF cloud. So I think it was MQTT.
Cool. You've got Bluetooth, you've got all these different protocols being sort of beautifully tied together. I'm really impressed that some students put this together over the course of a summer.
Yeah, and they had their sort of fair share of issues, and it's really impressive what they sort of managed to get together, and it ended up being a fully functional system. So it's really cool.
Speaking of multiple protocols being in use, I know that you've also done some recent Matter projects. Can you tell us a little bit at all about what Nordic is doing with the Matter protocol?
Yeah, so Matter is sort of um, the one protocol to sort of rule them all. So in the sort of home automation space and sort of there's been all these different protocols around Zigbee, Bluetooth, C-Wave, etc. And they're all sort of different standards, and getting all of them to sort of play nicely together and be interoperable. And also, at least from a Bluetooth point of view, you don't sort of have this IP addressability of each of the nodes. And so with Matter, you're sort of solving all those problems with one protocol. So basically makes everything sort of compatible with each other, and it's based on 802.15.04. You get sort of each node on your network is individually addressable through an IP address, and you have this self-healing network and routing within the network as well. So it really sort of solves all the sort of issues that you have had with these other sort of home automation protocols that were also promised to sort of solve all the issues that you had. So
Yeah, I saw this cool demo that you brought to that Nordic brought to CES this year, where it was showing a Google Home and an Apple product and all these different ones able to communicate just through the Matter protocol without they got a thingy 53 in there too,
yes,
without
they
much.
do.
And tell us a little bit about your team, because you mentioned that you're the ones who kind of get to play around with the new hardware and apparently before you joined, it sounds like there was an attempt at a rocket launch.
Yeah, so I don't think we have any sort of rocket launches planned in the future. Unfortunately, we are sort of busy working on new sort of development kits, prototyping platforms, and reference designs. So, but hopefully, we'll be able to do a rocket launch sometime in the future. Fingers crossed. So, but yeah, we are I work in the applications department at Nordic, and we are basically an internal customer. So we're the first department to just sort of get the chip and use it as our customers would do, and create sort of actual products with it. So be that a development kit or one of these thingy prototyping platforms or audio development kits, we sort of use them and in a similar way as the customer, and sort of go through the data sheets and try to sort of look through the documentation and basically use it as our customers would use them when we design new products.
Yeah, do you have any favorite applications that customers have used your products for? I'm not sure how
I
much
think sort of
visibility
all
you have
these.
into the end of it.
Well, the problem is that our products are used in so many different sort of
Mm.
type of products, right? So it's sort of yeah, it's only sort of the sky as it's the limit. So I really like all these home automation sensors that sort of allow you to automate your home, and I have a couple of those in my home as well. So automating all the lights and temperature in my home.
Cool. What do you use for that?
I use Home Assistant. So I have a Raspberry Pi that runs Home Assistant, and I have this C-Way compatible dongle that communicates with my light fixtures and thermostats, and I also have these pluggable wall adapters that I can control over Bluetooth as well.
That is so cool. And Home Assistant is an open source home automation system that you can hook up all kinds of different things to. I love this. And they've got all these different integrations. I've looked into this myself, and the fact that they integrate with, for example, if this and that, as well as stuff like Google Assistant and like all these different ecosystems as well. It's very exciting. Speaking of applications, though, we also did a challenge together recently, the Smarter Sustainable World Challenge. And I asked you what your favorite projects were. And of course, it ended up being the top 3 winners. So let's take a look at those.
Yeah, so the winning project is Smart Water Tap Leakage Controller IoT project. So we were 3 judges, and we were all like really amazed by like how complete and thorough the sort of finished product was, and they did everything. Um, they made custom hardware that they connected to the Thingy:53 through the expansion ports that we have added to it, and they developed their own application running on the Thingy:53 using our NF Connect SDK. And they built all this sort of hardware around it, and they set up sort of a demo, and it's like a complete finished working project. It was like really cool to see sort of how they pulled it together.
Yeah, they've actually got it
And
running here. Very cool. And you can see all the.
and sort of yeah, the documentation was like really excellent, and like documenting every step, and yeah, creating all this sort of custom hardware and circuits, connecting it to the Thingy:53. I was we were kind of blown away.
Yeah, you can be the top #1 winner in a contest using hand fabrication techniques.
Yeah, definitely. So it's like really cool. So we were amazed at like how complete the sort of end product was, given sort of what kind of resources that they had available. That they didn't have this like big lab and 3D printers and stuff like that. So really cool that they were sort of able to create this cool of a project.
Yeah. In the second and third places, we've got a soil-less, self-regulating vertical farm.
Definitely, yeah, and it's really cool, and this is sort of what we sort of as Nordic really want as well. That our customers, we want to encourage them to build these sustainable sort of products and solutions that allow us to sort of meet these sustainability development goals, sort of the UN has set. And as you said, this is sort of a way of using sort of our yeah, sort of the area that we have available in a much more efficient way, and it sort of conserves both water and all the sort of nutrients and everything that sort of go into the system. So it's like really optimized to produce sort of the most of the resources that we have. And the really cool thing about this is that it's sort of scalable. So you can sort of adapt this into a lot of these sort of vertical pots, right? And you can just basically add on a number of these and scale it really well. So it's really cool.
And what's our third one here? Agro Nordic. Sensing and irrigation automation. And they made their own little animation for it, which I love. This is so good.
Yeah, one of the most professional products projects I would say, and this is really sort of the third iteration of the project. So they've gotten this project up and running, or they did the project 2 times before, and they've sort of added on the Nordic Thingy 53 into the project in order to get wireless connectivity and stuff like that. So it was really cool how they sort of added this wireless connectivity to their existing product in order to sort of solve the issues that they had. And again, the documentation is like really, really good. You can sort of follow all the steps and sort of basically wire it up yourself if you want.
Really nice graphics in this one. And of course, there's the Nordic one up in the top left there. Any other favorites that you had from the contest that didn't end up in the top?
Well, the sort of float bot, that was also really cool. One from Ashokar.
Very cool.
So that was also really cool. Being able to sort of sense the water tank level using machine learning, and they also sort of took advantage of this sort of small plug-in board that we sent with the Thing 53 and added on their own external circuits. So I think that was really, really cool.
Wow, micro lidar. It looks like an ultrasonic distance sensor, but it not
does, yeah.
quite. So a tiny little lidar module. Ashok is a perennial winner of our contests and comes up with a lot of really cool stuff.
Really cool. And
Awesome.
I really love the yellow submarine vibe that you get from it.
Moving on to a bit more about your personal interests. You've worked with computerized control in industrial systems. Can you tell us a bit more about your experience with that and how it informs what you do today?
Yeah, so I have a control systems background. So I did my master's thesis on this unmanned aerial vehicles and navigation of those. So, but I kind of quickly discovered that it was sort of, I enjoyed sort of building the actual unmanned aerial vehicle more than sort of designing the control system and the sort of proving that you doing sort of all the mathematical analysis and proving that you would sort of converge to the set point, etc. So there's a lot of mathematical proofs and stuff like that going into the sort of control systems field. So I found out that I sort of enjoyed the actual building and sort of system design of the system much better than sort of the academic part. So that was sort of my introduction into sort of embedded development. And then after I graduated, I ended up at Nordic. I started in the application or in the technical support department, and we sort of got to help out a lot of the customers, and we saw sort of all these cool products that they were putting our chips into. And then I moved on to the applications department at Nordic, where we sort of work with the sort of system design of all our reference designs and development kits.
Looking into the future, what do you think is some of the most exciting stuff that's going to be coming out in home automation in the future?
Well, I think Matter is a really interesting part of that future. I think it's going to sort of kind of revolutionize how we do home automation and how we sort of interconnect all these types of devices. It's sort of going to be much less sort of hassle and much easier to sort of combine all these different sort of types of sensors and things together and create sort of your own custom systems. You're not sort of going to be locked to one particular vendor. You can mix and match, and you can sort of choose the best from each type of vendor and create your sort of own bespoke home automation system. Tie everything together with Home Assistant if you want, or if you want to go with sort of a finished package from one of the vendors, that's also okay. So I like the way that we with Matter you basically have sort of both doors open. You can create sort of your own system, or you can sort of choose a complete system from one provider.
That's really cool. Let's see. So as someone who builds your own hardware, And I know that you mentioned that you built a solder fume extractor, so clearly you're someone who's sort of safety minded. Are there any other essentials for your home lab, either for safety or for the other things that sort of help you with building things?
Well, I have a 3D printer, so I have a
Mm.
Prusa Mini, so that's really indispensable, I think. I'm not using it as much as I should. um, but whenever stuff breaks in my home, I usually enjoy sort of modeling whatever broke and printing it out on my printer. And when I'm doing some kind of project, and you always need some type of enclosure or yeah, something like that. And then it's like really rewarding to design it yourself. And for me, it's kind of a bit meditative to sort of set in Fusion 360 and sort of model things, and then being able to sort of print them 2 feet away is really cool.
Mm, I fully
So
agree.
a 3D printer is that is essential, and a proper soldering iron, a good one. That's
What's your favorite?
um, I really like the Ursa ones.
I don't know if I know
Or
this.
but yeah, we also have a lot of sort of high end sort of Weller irons at work as well, and those are really really good.
Yeah. So for 3D printing, what are your preferred materials? Because you mentioned that like in some places, especially up in Trondheim, the weather can be pretty intense. And so if you're doing stuff for outside, there might be considerations, but for your general sort of around the house um fixes and things, what kind of filament do you use?
So I'm just using sort of this Prusament, I think PLA material. So that's sort of what I have, and I use it for most of my projects. So I don't have any sort of fancy glow in the dark filaments or anything like that yet. So it's just sort of your basic black Prusament filament. So it does the job.
Nothing wrong with using a standard filament for standard projects. I've got a couple of little fancy ones, but honestly, I find that I don't really use them. You were talking about this SMEs project. So let's have a look at that. Uh, Tell us about this and what you like about it.
Yeah, so this is actually one of my colleagues in Poland that made this project. So when we did the Smarter Sustainable World Challenge, we had sort of the official challenge, but we also had an internal challenge inside Nordic. And Thomas was one of the ones that participated, and the project is really really cool. So you have this small sort of robot that is controlled by the Thing 53, and that basically opens your patio door whenever it's too hot inside to ventilate the room, and then closes it when when you reach sort of the appropriate temperature. And if you look at the documentation that Thomas has made, it's beautiful. Yeah, exact detail into everything, and everything is documented. You have technical drawings of everything. It's nothing short of amazing. And yeah, he really set the bar, definitely. And so this is more or less a finished product, and yeah, I think he could more or less just start producing it.
Awesome. Helping cool your house without using
HVAC, yeah, yeah.
so much less power. Just open and close the door. I love that you have internal contests at the same time that you have external contests so that people in the company itself get to really be part of the experience and play around with your own tech.
Definitely, and I think that's a really important thing about working at Nordic, that you should be able to work with sort of hobby projects on the side. And like if you as a Nordic employee sort of would like some hardware to play with, there's yeah, you just sort of send an email and then it drops down into your mailbox shortly after. So we have sort of a dedicated stock for internal projects. So
Cool.
so anyone who wants to sort of develop stuff at Nordic, they have sort of hardware readily available for any type of project. But it's like really cool that we can sort of have these internal competitions as well, and hackathons and stuff like that. That's really cool.
Any future projects that you're planning on?
Yeah, I know we usually, when we have these type of challenges, we usually run internal competitions. So I guess sort of the next challenge that we're doing with Hackster will sort of determine what kind of projects that will sort of turn up internally as well.
Makes
But
sense.
we're also doing sort of a lot of demos for trade shows, etc. So come Embedded World in March and Mobile World Congress in Barcelona as well. You will probably see a lot of cool demos.
Ah, good to know. Everyone who doesn't know, we have an events page as well, actually. So Hackster.io/events. And you can see all kinds of cool stuff coming up there. So if you want to catch Nordic in the future, go check out Embedded World. So the behavior monitoring project is part of this larger area on the Nordic site called Dev Zone. Can you tell us a bit more about this? What kinds of stuff can we find in the Dev Zone at Nordic?
Yeah, so it's basically sort of the stack exchange of things for everything Nordic related. So it's our user portal, and anyone who has any sort of questions or issues with getting their Nordic hardware sort of up and running, be that hardware or software, they can pose a question, and then we'll sort of answer. We have a sort of dedicated team of application engineers that will sort of reply to you within 24 hours and help you out. If you have anything, your sort of questions related to Nordic hardware, that's the place to go. And as you show there, we also have this developer academy. So it's this like online training course that basically shows you how to use our NF Connect SDK, and it also shows you the sort of fundamentals related to cellular IoT. And I think we're also adding on a lot of more courses pretty soon.
Very cool. Maybe I'll sign up for some of those.
Definitely recommend it.
So you have some cool hardware to show us. What do you got here?
Yeah, so over here we have the Thingy91. So that's the cellular IoT prototyping platform. And over here we have the Thingy52. So that's the one that they used inside the Beehive as the internal sensor. And this was the one that transmitted everything up to the NRF cloud. And then we have the Nordic Thingy53 that you did an unboxing video on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was used as the woodpecker detector in the smart hive project. So the project actually ran over 2 summers. So in the first iteration, they had this NR53 kit that was sort of the aggregator of all the sensory information. But during the second summer, they used the Thingy53 for that purpose instead. So they swapped out the 5340DK with the Thingy53 board. And since the Thingy53 also allows you to run machine learning models on it, so they combined that with a woodpecker detector. So by doing that, they sort of cut out one part of the system that sort of was consuming a bit of unnecessary power, since you already had the Thingy53 in the loop there as the woodpecker detector. So they sort of optimized the system a bit. So and there's a really cool part of it is that we have this small plug-in board.
Oh.
So this goes into this small slot here, and that's what all these projects at the Smarter Sustainable World Challenge was using to connect their external circuitry.
I remember seeing that in the SMEs project in one of the diagrams.
Yes. And sort of the main purpose for it is to allow users to connect their own hardware, but also to be able to do curve measurements of the Thingy53. So how much current is the 5340 running on the Thingy53 consuming? So if you have a Nordic power provider kit, like the one over here, the one that's blinking, you hook it up to the debug board and you slide it in. And if you then open, I can share my screen maybe. So if you yeah, so you can then you select the PPK and you sort of enable power output, so you power up the device, and you can then measure the real-time current consumption of the device and do power optimization of the system. And this is more or less what the students were doing in their second summer. So they were sort of power optimizing the system, making sure that it was consuming as little power as possible. And they even added a solar panel to do energy harvesting and charge up the batteries when there were during the day, so they can run through the night on solar power.
Love solar power
So
projects.
yeah, so you see that the Thing 53 is using on average 15 milliamps of power. So it sounds like a lot, but the 53 has this front end module that allows it to send that at long ranges. So you have basically a power amplifier that beefs up the signal, and you can send transmit mobility over much longer ranges. But that also comes at a cost of increased current consumption. But you can swap out. So the Thing 53 has two antennas, so you can choose to use the power amplifier or not.
And I think we did a video on the power profiler kit as well. So I'll drop that link in the description.
Yeah, please do. It's a really, really great tool, and it's super popular amongst our users. So it's because if you want to do this type of power profiling, you either have to have this like really expensive sort of key site or Agilent meters, right? And you can sort of get the same type of functionality at a fraction of the cost. So, and it's really handy. You can have it sort of on your desk and sort of do the power profiling while you're sort of coding and developing. So you can sort of basically check that whatever you're doing is is correct, and that you're not sort of putting the device in some type of mode that is consuming a lot of energy. So for instance, in this case, you're enabling the wrong front end, right, for transmitting if you want to be as low power as possible.
It looks like there's some kind of real-time feedback happening on the power profiler kit over there, where you've got this LED that was blinking blue and now it's sort of breathing red.
Yeah, so that's basically just the what kind of mode it is in. So you can have it as a source meter or just an ampere meter. So with the ampere meter mode, you're basically just sort of interrupting the connection and measuring the current that goes through. But with the source meter mode, you're actually supplying current to the device through the power profiler kit. So it depends a bit on your use case. So if we had a board that didn't have an internal battery, then you would use the source meter mode and measure the supply the power to the kit and sort of measure it at the same time. But since we have a battery on board, we can just measure the current in ampere meter mode. Yeah.
And a cool thing about these devices is that they have this sort of flexible shell that you can pull off really easily to see what's inside and get a look at the internals and sort of poke around in there as well. These little thingy kits, they're so cool.
Yeah. So the previous sort of thingy devices, they have this silicon top casing that you can pull off. But on the Thingy 53, we sort of opted for a completely redesigned casing. And it's made out of polypropylene plastic, both the top and bottom. And we have this sort of front cover door that allows you to access all the sort of connectors and this debug and current measurement board port, the USB connector. Then we also have this pretty nifty expansion connector, which uses this cubic, stemma, and seed compatible connector. So if you have any type of sort of external sensor that comes from cubic, seed, or Adafruit or anything like that, you can just connect it to the Thingy 50p using this small cable.
So cool. All those little
So
tiny I2C plug and play devices.
correct. So from a sort of sustainability point of view, the new casing is actually sort of better than the old one, because the sort of silicon top cover, it's really hard to recycle. So from an environmentally or an environmental perspective, it's sort of better to use sort of this polypropylene plastic, because that can be recycled and sort of shredded down and creating new pellets. So originally, we really wanted to use a recycled plastic for the casing of this Thingy 53 device. But in order to sort of sell development kits, you need to get them certified or CE certified. And that means that the plastic material needs to be sort of it needs to be fire resistant. So in case you have an electrical fire, it needs to sort of stop burning after, I think, 5 seconds or something. And if you have recycled plastic, that is not sort of a homogeneous sort of mix. But if you have sort of a lot of different plastic types, then you can also get sort of toxic fumes, and you don't get sort of the sort of flame retardant characteristics that you need in these types of applications. So even though we sort of really wanted to use a recycled plastic, it was really difficult to find something that we could use in that regard, because we couldn't get it sort of certified as this to be flame retardant enough.
That is fascinating. I never knew that was an aspect of recycled plastic that could cause you to have trouble using it in your product. Well, cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to throw in there before we wrap up?
Well, another sort of piece of kit. It's quite old, but we have this sort of BBC microbit. I don't know if you know it.
I sure do.
Also,
Those are great.
Yeah, yeah. So those also use Nordic products, and sort of also sort of fits well into these UN sustainability goals regarding sort of education, and we're actually donating these Nordic chips to the Microbit Foundation to
Nice.
make it sort of as easy, sort of accessible to anyone. We have several versions. I think this is the first one, so this uses the NR51, but there's this, I think there's a new version of the microbit that uses the NR52833. On the side here, you have sort of compasses and accelerometers, and over here you have, I think it's a USB FTDI chip that sort of translate, because the 51 didn't have any USB peripheral. But on the sort of second version of the microbit, you have the 52833, and that has a USB peripheral. So then you can sort of get away with this USB FTDI chip, and you only have the sort of 52 that is the brain of the operation, and talks directly to all the sensors and stuff.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. This has been a delight. I love learning about this bee project, and it makes me want to build all these different things for my plants, and it's been really cool to get a little peek into what your world is like over at Nordic. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show. It was really cool, and hopefully we have a lot of cool stuff to show you guys in the future.
Yeah, looking forward to our next contest. All right, cheers. Thanks, Bjørn.
Bye.
Yeah.